a little bit before I dive in? All right, cool. So just in the chat, just want to, if you could just let me know if you're an Agile coach, you might be a Scrum Master, you might be project manager, leader, whatever you are, manager, but just want to just sort of connect with us all of just what role you are. And please share in the chat. Okay, great. Some Agile coaches, project manager, Scrum Master, front-end engineer, chief of staff. Okay, great. Consultant. All right, mixture. All right, I know English isn't your first language. I'm Australian. I tend to speak very fast. I'm going to try and slow down. But if I am speaking fast, please shout out, tell me to slow down. So is that okay? Is that good for everybody? All right. All right. So as Harris said, what I want to try and get across is I want to give you a feel of what systemic coaching is. We're going to go through a little bit of theory, make it interactive. I've got a couple of my favorite tools, methods that I want to share with you, but I want you to have something practical that you can use, you know, the next day at your work. So is that okay with everybody? Oh, we've got one Aussie as well who's sick as well. Okay, great. All right, let's get started. All right, so is that okay for everybody? Right, now I'm just showing this, one, because I love this quote, which is the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. And that's definitely what my journey in systemic coaching has been like, because I have been on the edge, been very uncomfortable, and just had to throw myself into stuff. And maybe you relate to this in, you know, I'm also an Agile coach, so I use it in all my practices. But for a lot of us, we're just having to go out there and throw ourselves into stuff. So this is definitely something. This is not meant to be how many badges I've got, but I just wanted to quickly tell you about the journey, because sometimes people say, okay, how did you get there? And I did ORSC, which is Organization Relationship Systems Coaching. It is a global training course, but they teach you a lot of sort of systems and systemic tooling. So I did that first, and then I loved that so much. I went and did my sort of individual one-to-one ICF professional coaching to a PCC level. And then someone said, oh, this systemic team coaching with Peter Hawkins is really great. And 2 years later, I finished that diploma. And that's sort of where I am today. So the journey always continues. So I'm doing supervision now and helping other coaches. So that's just my little bit of my journey. So today's session, hopefully you'll leave with what is systemic coaching, how to work systemically, and I'm going to share some of my stories, and we can go through any questions. Okay, so let's just first to explore just what is one-to-one coaching and team coaching, and what do we pay attention to. So I just wanted people, and you can go off mute, just wanted people to shout out, what do you think one-to-one coaching is, and what's the difference between team coaching? Anybody want to share? I know it's always scary to go first, but this isn't a difficult one, but it's like, okay, so let me help you with the first one. So if I ask this to someone, a person would say, okay, if I'm doing one-to-one coaching, my full attention is on that one person. So I'm attending to them, that one person, and what they're bringing into the room, right? And then if I'm coaching a team, I'm not coaching the individuals, but it's almost like the system as a whole. Like if you were going to say, what's the glue that holds all those people together? That's what I'm coaching. I'm coaching that center, sort of glue thing. So I'm paying attention to that. So that's one thing. And maybe this will help with the definitions that if you're looking at ICF classification, what coaching is, it's about partnering to bring out the best in the person. That's what one-to-one coaching is. Team coaching is, you know, you're doing it at a team level. But if we look at what Agile coaching is, what's really interesting now, and this is a sort of came out last year, this definition, is as professionals, we hold the bias with Agile, but we're going into having to do one-to-one work, one-to-one coaching, team and systemic coaching. So it's interesting how just Agile coaching has evolved over the many years as to what that encompasses. And if I asked people off the street, what does this actually mean? They might not know the systemic part. So that's what I'm going to dig down into a little bit later. But let's first have a look at our own systems. And I want you to do a little bit of an exercise with me. So a system is usually 2 or more people. So if you're in a family group, you are in that system. If you're in a team, you belong to a system. If you're in a sporting group, you belong to that system. And so you can see how, if you think of this peacock with all these little spots on their feather, that could be all the systems you belong to. So I just wanted to do just a 1-minute reflection with you now. And I want you to think about how many groups do you belong to? So if you want to just take a minute and think about, maybe write them down, or if you want to count them, how many systems do you belong to? So you might belong to your family, your work team, you might belong to communities of practice, this meetup group is a system. So anything where there's a system, and just do that for a minute. Okay, we've got some numbers. Okay, for those people that I can see, or you can put it in the chat. So how many people got over like 6? You want to put your hand up? More than 6 systems, right? 10? Yep. 15? Yep, 20. All right, great. So I just want to take a pause. Whatever number you have, if you think about all those systems that you belong into, they affect you in some way. They have an influence on you in some way. So actually, you know how we said one-to-one coaching is you're focused on the individual. If you think of the peacock, and these are all the systems you belong to, when someone comes into the room and you're coaching them, you're actually coaching them and all the systems they bring with them. Does that make sense? It's like just a great metaphor just to think about, because they're influenced. And then the complexity of this is, if you think of your team that you might be working with, and you think of all those individuals, they're bringing in all their systems. So you've got all these other influences or lenses in that team, not just the team themselves. So sometimes when we look at an individual, we're not thinking about all the things that they're holding out and belonging to in their system. Does that make sense? So just from a systems lens. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So let's just take a step to then what is systemic coaching? All right. So there's a couple of different definitions, but really the thing is that to be a systemic coach, what you're doing is when you're coaching teams or you're coaching individuals, that you're keeping the system in mind, but also you're making the person aware of the systems that they're in and the relationship to all the parts. So a good example is there's you, there could be your team, there could be other teams in your organization, there could be departments, there could be stakeholders, the ecosystem, and all those sort of layers. If you think of like the doll and all those different layers, what you're looking at is the relationship to all those different connections. And so when you're coaching, you're having to hold all of that as well. Okay, so I'm just going to pause. Have I lost you all, or you all sort of, any questions coming at the moment?
We have a question, if you can zoom a little bit. So this is a
sure.
procedural thing, okay? But I also wrote in chat that if there's any question, we can put it in chat, or people can ask right away.
Yeah, I think we're a small group, so I'm happy to shout out. People can shout out questions, right? Okay, all right. So one other thing, just to, as we're still on to systems work, we have to think that if you're thinking of a system, so just think of your teams. They're naturally intelligent and creative. They're living entity. All the voices and the perspectives get shared. So it's always emerging and changing. A system is never static. And it has its own culture and atmosphere, because you might go in, you might be coaching as an Agile coach, 2 different teams. Each team has got their own atmosphere, their own culture, their own way of doing things, but you'll pick up things on just of working with those 2 teams, which are different, right? Because they're different systems. And it's just interesting just to know of when you've got this system lens, how you're going to move forward. Right, so I want to tell you about a little story. All right, so there was one team I was working with, and the Scrum Master said there was a developer and one of the testers in the team had a conflict. They were having a fight, and they said, okay, as an Agile coach, you go in, you have to solve this fight. And maybe back a couple of years ago, I'd go and try and resolve the matter between the 2 people. But with my systemic lenses on, I'm thinking about, okay, it's not an individual thing. What's the issue that they're discussing, and where is it coming from? And because each of them were in different communities of practice, the thought process of how they operate was much greater than those 2 individuals. So as an Agile coach, the way you would go and maybe talk about this is not to those 2 individuals, but it's a much larger item that you might want to talk to both communities of practice or the leaders or managers of those, and resolve it at a higher level, not at the individual level. So what I want you to try and think of is that systems and systemic lenses, there's layers. So I want you to get in tuned with curiosity of, like, is there an issue that's happening within the team, or is there something that's happening in the outer layers, which is having an impact on the team? That's just one story. So sometimes we're very blind to what's happening in the outer system lenses, or what the economy's maybe having the impact on a company, how those certain departments are impacting the team. So sometimes we work with the team, but we're not looking at those systemic lenses. So that's the bit of theory, and then we're going to get into a bit of practice. So I'm going to pause, and any questions emerging for people?
Susan, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
What about the duration? Is it any factor regarding the systems that we belong? So let me elaborate a bit. I'm part of a team doing something, I don't know, a sports team or maybe a working team that we've been working together, and then I change workplace, but we're still communicating through messages in a chat group, or maybe once or twice per year we are meeting each other. Am I considered still part of the system, and is the system still affect me?
It can do, depending on the purpose of the system and how engaged you are in that system. So if you're still meeting and you still influence it, then the influence can go both ways. But it's a good segue, because we're going to look at everybody's systems and how you're working in them. So maybe this one might, I know this might look a bit complex, but this was one of the clients that I worked with. And what I like doing is, when I start off with a organization, after a couple of months, I'm trying to assess what is the relationship map of the teams or the people I'm working with. People see that, or they want me to make it a bit bigger. So I think we're going to be doing this as well, but I'm just going to talk you through. So I was the coach, I was this green triangle here. And the key is that people are triangles, and a system or a subsystem is, a circle sort of thing. So a sphere. And I want you to think of the mapping of it. So when we go into an organization, it's good to think about, okay, what's the relationships that are happening? Is it weak? Is it average? Is it strong? Or is it in conflict? So in this particular one, it was with Brussels Bank and also with a UK subsidiary, and it was a regulatory and there was community. But you can see that I had a very strong relationship with this particular team, which was the transformation team in the UK. And I drew the lines of what I thought, my representation of what I thought their relationships were with other people. And then I drew in where there was conflict and where there was weak relationships. And you might think, okay, how did this help me? But when you get a systemic lens like this and you can have a look at what's happening in the system, it's your current status of where you are. Now, the way I use this with teams is sometimes in a retrospective, I might want to say, let's map out, this is like a constellation of how we are with other teams or other people within the team. And I get them to do their current state. And then I get them to look at what's the future state that they want to go to. And then depending on the psychological safety of that team, we would actually share. And usually new information comes up. And sometimes it's a good talking piece. We might do a gallery view or just show them up. So I want to give you all a little bit of a go of doing your own, if everybody's up for it. I don't know how much energy people have got on a Wednesday night. So might just be nice just to spend a couple of minutes and just think about, where are you in relationship with either the teams or the people you work with? You could do it as an organization, or if you want to not do it as an organization, you want to do it outside of work, you'd also do one like that. But I just want you to get a sense of where are you operating, and what we're going to do is you're going to do your current state, and then Harris is going to put you into probably pairs, and you're going to have a couple of minutes to share with someone else about your relationship. And I just want you to talk it through with them and sort of say, this is the weakness, this is the strength, this is the conflict. Yeah. And you don't have to put names. You can just put, job roles or whatever, depending on how you want to capture it. Is that okay? Any questions?
Maybe if you can scroll up a bit, Susan, because the bottom right corner is hidden by the map of Neural,
that one.
yeah, so that people can really check what are the relationships and what are the lines, dotted lines, straight lines, double lines, etc.
Yeah, is that good?
And yeah, if there are any questions, because there are some people that just got in throughout the call, so don't hesitate to ask for clarification if it's something that you cannot really get, because it's a very useful exercise. I've done it physically with Susan in the past, so it's a very good exercise. You're gonna see a lot of things in that, so it would be good to get the understanding and have it done. Okay, Sarah raised a hand. Please, Sarah.
I want to ask about something. Do you believe that there is a problem in coaching subsystem of a system? Because in ICF, they talk about if you are having a subsystem inside your system, you might have a conflict of interest, and you would face something that should be hidden from confidentiality level of you. However, it should be transparent to the whole system. So this is one point that I want to ask about. And the other point is, do you have some insights about the stakeholder relationship map? You do afterwards, like a quadrant of the stakeholder from the interest and the power of the stakeholder, and do you categorize or classify them later on after doing this?
Okay, let me answer the second one first. I've done it in different ways. Sometimes I've got people to do the objects smaller or larger, depending on the power or influence. It's just a visual, or different colors. Sometimes, you can do it that. There's so many different ways you can break with that. But usually this sort of stakeholder map are the important stakeholders in whatever your world is usually. But yes, you can do it that way. And the first one, just for everybody, because so a subsystem is a small group within a group. So I'll give you an example. So there might be two people from an existing team that join another team, and they've got a really strong relationship, those couple of people that have worked before, and everybody else is new in the team. So they're already a subsystem, which means they know each other really well. So it's just the transparency of it. So a subsystem means that they've just got some previous history. I still coach the whole system. I try not to think of a subsystem versus a system. So in that respect, I try and just coach the whole system. If I'm coaching the subsystem, the pairs separately to the bigger system, I would always say, I'm never the keeper of secrets. So if anybody wants to share anything, that subsystem should share it with the system. Does that make sense? I don't know if I've confused you, Sarah.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, how are we doing on our diagrams? Are people ready to?
Okay, I'm ready to push the button for the breakouts.
Yeah,
okay.
So let's do like 5 minutes, and it's really just to share. So you're sharing with someone else, and for the person that's listening to it, be a little bit curious. Okay, why is this in conflict, or why is this, you know, strong, or, you know, just so you've got a little bit of banter, and then we're going to cross share when you come back in. Yeah.
Just a help tip: if you want to take a screenshot of this, because in the breakout you're not going to be able to see Suzanne's screen. So if you want to take a screenshot of the shapes and the connections, just do it, and yeah, then that will be better for you. And how much time do we allocate for that, Suzanne?
Yeah, so I think if we do it in pairs, we do maybe 5 minutes.
Okay.
Does that seem okay?
Okay, good. And we have a question from Omar. Are we discussing our own stakeholder maps based on a scenario, like work, for example?
Yep.
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 Okay, we're gonna be passing through the breakout rooms in case you need anything. So yeah, let's do this.
Should I trump him with, is it Maya? She's in room 5, or do you want to move her to another one?
What about Maya?
She's alone in room 5.
But why Georgia? Georgia hasn't joined. Move to, no, I can.
You can move her to 9.
Yeah.
Or move Lucas. Yeah. I know. Whenever you do breakouts.
Yeah. Something is happening.
And then Georgia needs to go with Sarah. Yeah. Okay.
But what about Georgia? Georgia, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay, let me move you to another room. Yeah.
Room 9.
Yeah, that happened because I haven't deducted you and me from the rooms.
Oh, okay.
So
okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
It was very quiet, so I don't know if I lost everybody. You know, there's quite a bit of theory, but.
Well, they're usually not that much. So we always have our backup plan. So me or Anastasia, my colleague, we're jumping in, and especially if we have like coaching demos from other coaching. From other coaches, we have the backup plan for us to get in front and then leading, you know. But yeah, depends on the group.
Yeah.
Maybe this is something completely new for them as well. So this is
yeah. It takes a while. Yeah. Hey, Lucas. Oh.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Lucas.
Hi. So one question: the breakout room, we are only 2 people. Is this correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay. Wait. Then
You're here with Georgia, so
yes.
yeah.
Yes. So see you.
Okay.
Let me save pictures. Perfect.
Should I do something because I got a bit confused on this?
You should
Oh.
go.
How can I
yeah.
go back to the break room?
Can we put you?
You should see like a button like join breakout. You should
Yes,
see.
I can't see this.
Okay.
We could move it to 7 and move it to 9. Let me try that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now I can see. Thank you.
So try and go to 9.
Okay. And who else? We also have like, okay, in room 3, it's only Dora.
Oh,
Let me join that room and then.
okay. Okay. All right. Cool. Oh, someone else is joining. Hey.
Okay, so we have more people in the main room. Alex?
Yeah, Harry, sorry, I'm using Megabyte, so I have a poor connection.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, you can stay. You can stay with us. You can talk me through it if you want. Did you have a chance to?
No, I missed the whole part. I had to restart the router, so I lost great part of it.
Okay.
But that's fine. That's fine.
That's okay. All righty.
Okay, should we move people back?
Yeah, just
Like
move people
5
back.
minutes? Okay. Good, so there's 1 minute left for them.
Yeah, when I shared the screen, I couldn't see the chat, but anyway, I'll make sure I have a look.
Yeah,
at
no
it.
worries. I have an eye on the chat, so in case
Okay.
everything pops up. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, people are getting back. Welcome back.
Yep, welcome back. All right. So
We can't
Once-
wait to see some systems.
yeah, who wants to share? How was that exercise? Was it easy, hard? Useful?
Not
Well,
so,
it was
not so
in
easy.
the. I'm sorry.
Suzanne, you want to go?
There we go. Yeah, it was hard in that small amount of time because
Yeah.
the system is so very complex. I was thinking about my own working field, and then I'm a consultant, so I have my clients' systems too. And I was just I wasn't barely even finished before we had to talk.
It does. No, and you make a good point. It does need a lot more time. It was just more like a taster to just try and get your head in. But to that point, it's really good if you can spend a bit more time and actually do yours and, you know, do your complete system and where you operate. Yeah. Okay, good point. Yeah. Letitia, did you?
Yeah, something I found difficult was to identify the level of granularity. Do I have to go to each individual, or do I have to find and then it can start to be really complex. So how do we manage that?
So my rule of thumb is if the relationship between one team and the other team is, say, average, like everybody in that team and everybody in that team average, I would probably just have 2 circles. If there's one individual which is weak to something, then you know how I've picked out certain individuals in mine rather than every single individual. So you don't want to make it too confusing for you, but it's really your visual representation of your system, and everybody will have a slightly different one in their system. So, yep. Great. What else? Who wants to share? Okay, maybe what about new awareness? Did it give anybody new awareness, something that they thought, okay, I might have known this, but when it's on paper, taking a bird's eye view, it gave me more? Anybody? Okay. So a couple of tips. If you're going to do this, definitely do it for yourself. If you want to do it with a team, it's great to do it in a retrospective where you get them to map out either the relationships in the team or with the teams they work with. As I said, if there's a lot of psychological safety, I would share the current state. If there's not psychological safety in the team, I get them to do what's the future state they want to move towards, and I get them to share that. So sometimes in the past, people if they've done a relationship system of their team, and they might not put people's names, but there might be someone who they put outside the circle and they've put a real big conflict. And if you put that up and you have the team go around and gallery walk, it can be a bit triggering to some people. So sometimes the future state of the team is really good. Now, the whole reason you do this is to get into action. So if I'm coaching someone, like I do this with sometimes with product owners or scrum masters, I get them to map out their own system. And then I talk to them about, this is your current state, this is your future state. What are the 1 or 2 actions you want to take so we can move to that future state? Because it's all about getting people into action and getting everybody moving. So if you're doing one-to-one coaching, it's a great tool to use to get them to realize what their current state is and think about their future state and how they want to get into that first baby steps of action. So it might be on certain relationships. So that's one thing on a one-to-one level. If you're doing it on a team level, you're doing it for an awareness and as a team, what's the new data showing up? How can we use that data? You can use that as a conversation piece and then get into action. So that's 2 ways of which you can use it. So any questions just on that? Is that okay? All right. All right, so that's from a systems perspective, how we would map a system. So we've done the exercise. So another great exercise, which I can do in the room, which Harris has been in, or visually, is something called a sculpt exercise, right? And I'm going to use a swimming pool. You're going to think I'm a little bit crazy. I know it's winter. Actually, I just came back from Australia, so that was nice. But So I'm going to tell you what I did at the conference, the Agile Coaching Retreat conference, and how I used this particular method, and then you've got a chance to use it with your teams. So the sculpt is to just see where people are on a topic. So I got everybody to walk in the room, and everybody was, you know, looking around going, okay, what are we going to be doing? And I wanted to get them up. So I got them up and I said, picture you're in a swimming pool, and there's the deep end and there's the shallow end. And I want you to stand in the pool of what your relationship is to systemic coaching. Or I could have said agile coaching, or I could have said training, or I could have said ice cream, you know, whatever your relationship is to something, right? So I picked systemic coaching because that was the topic of the day. And I got them all, they all went and they stood somewhere in this pool. And you might go, okay, that's a little bit strange. And then the first question people usually ask is, okay, well, does the deep end mean it's a bad experience and the shallow end mean it's a good experience? And with Sculpt, you don't give any explanation. You just say, whatever you interpret, just go stand where you're standing, right? So that's the first part of the exercise is Fred stood in deep and Sally stood in shallow, right? Then as the facilitator, as the coach, I might go and stand next to Sally, and these are the questions. So where are you and what are you doing? So from this position, how are you feeling? And she might go, actually, I feel great. I feel so much in control of systemic coaching. I'm in the shallow end because this is where I feel that I can work at my best. And then I go, from this position, what do you notice? And she might say, look, I see everybody's in the deep end. So I don't feel maybe connected to where they are. And then I might say, and what do you need now from the team? And it's just a way of having that conversation around, because when you do constellation work, this is movement work, it's a great opener. Someone that we don't voice, we take it into our bodies. So doing systemic work when you do movement work can be quite powerful. And the same thing with Fred. Then I'd go stand next to Fred, and from this position, how are you feeling? What are you noticing? And what do you need right now? And it's just a way for them to open up around a topic. And that's what's called a sculpt. All right, so I just want to pause there. Has anybody done any constellation work, any movement work in their coaching practice? No? Okay. So I also want to tell you, I use this a lot and I've revamped it. So at Christmas time, with a team, we're virtual. And I go, I just want to kick off the workshop. And I want you to imagine we're walking into a Christmas party and there's the dance floor and there's the bar and there's the food table. And I just want you to see where you gravitate to. And then, you know, I didn't even put up any visual. And I go, Tom, where are you? And he goes, I'm at the bar. And I go, okay, from this position, how are you feeling? What are you noticing? Because it's just getting people connecting to what they are on a certain topic around it. So you can really play around with sculpt work. It can be quite a fun thing. And especially if you're in the room, it can be quite powerful. So maybe I might just pass over to Harris because I can't remember. Harris, did you do this one with me? I don't remember. I think you did with this one.
No, I came in the second day, actually.
Oh, you came in the second day. You used the sculpt. Okay.
Well, I saw the posters that were written, and but I haven't lived it on myself. That's why I have a question on that.
Yeah. Okay, great. What's your question?
So as Sally or Fred are explaining how they're feeling and where they're finding themselves and why, can the rest of the people move around in order to go more towards Sally or Fred, or they aren't allowed to?
No, they usually just, for sculpt, is just you stand where you stand. And the interesting thing is I might go to Fred and I might go to Tom, who's standing next to him, and he might be completely different. So Fred might be having a really terrible, hard time thinking he's sinking. And Tom might go, I love the deep end. I love to be absorbed in the complexity. Both are in the same position. Both had different emotional feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be maybe the company's gone in a merger, maybe there's been a lot of changes in the team or whatever. You can do a sculpt on anything. It's just a different way of coaching a system or a team in that. Yeah. What other questions are coming up for people?
There's an interesting comment from Mia that Maya is saying, like in the past, she used a chessboard layout rather than bodies.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so look, if you feel like you want to experiment with it, please do. But it's another one of those that's a great tools to use. All right, so let's move on.
Any question or comment in that? Because I heard something. I don't know if it's my voice or someone wanted to speak.
Anything else on the sculpt?
Yeah, yes. Maybe what is the main objective? When do you choose to use to more for to start a workshop, or
you can use a lot. I sometimes use it as a kickoff to start a workshop. Sometimes depending on what the topic is, but you could have done something in a workshop and then at the end you might say, okay, want to get everybody up. We just want to do a check-in and we're going to do it this way. It's just a different way of doing it. And it's funny, if I said to everybody in the room, like when I did it, the coaching retreat, what's your relationship to systems coaching? I might get 1 or 2 loud people in the room sharing and everybody else would be quiet. So how do you know the voices of the system? So what they do is they move with their feet. And this is why movement is really good with a group sometimes. So you might have a group of 10 people in the workshop and you might be trying to, it's like with this group, trying to get people to talk. And I don't know what you're all thinking apart from the people that are talking, right? So you doing this sort of work of like, go and stand in your spot to your relationship, and then you going around and checking, the whole system gets to hear everybody. And within, maybe 10, 15 minutes, that whole system has got new information, especially on how can this group support you in maybe whatever aim of the workshop is, something like that. What do you need from the workshop? It's just another interesting tool just to experiment with. So I sort of teach this one first because it's the easiest constellation work. I think, Harris, you saw the one that we did the bigger constellation with the whole group. We had about 50 or 60 people. And I trained some of the coaches up to try and that's a lot of work when you have to coordinate a lot of people in different topics. But this is the most simplest one you can do. So yeah, all I can say is just give it a go, see how you feel, and experiment on a safe group if you want to first. Yeah. Any other questions coming up? Right. Other thing I want to just go to is, how do you bring the voice of the system in the group? And so one of the techniques is, because we're in Zoom, if I'm working with a team or a leadership team and we're talking about a topic, I might say, if the stakeholders were sitting behind you, what would they be saying on this matter? Or if a CEO was here in the room with you, what would he be saying? Or if our, clients, early stage clients were here in the room, what would they want from this team? Or something like that, whatever it is. So you see what I'm doing in the wording? I am trying to, because when you sometimes work with teams, they become quite silo or insular and they're thinking about their views and their data. And what I'm trying to do is get you to think about the systemic views. How do you bring the voice of the system or those different lenses into conversations? So I use this a lot and they'll get used to the banter, but you're always trying to get different perspectives or different data points into those conversations. So in the Zoom, I would say, just imagine they're sitting behind you. What would they be saying on this topic, or what would they need from you, or anything like that is something very helpful. If you're in, and this is why you've got a chair, if you were actually in the office and you were in a meeting room, sometimes you can have a chair and you can point to the chair and say, just imagine Fred, our CEO, is sitting in that chair. What would he be saying now? And so the whole point of a lot of this work is, you know, if we take you back to the beginning of, you know, think about people and all the systems they belong to and how they shape them, but they are living constantly in emerging systems. Everything is constantly changing. So I'm trying to get people to think not what they're looking at now, but to wide angle view of everything that's happening out there and try and bring in what they think those voices are into discussions. And now you might have a discussion with a team, you might have done this, and then you might go, okay, great. So we've got a lot of data points. Let's go get some evidence. Let's now go talk to Fred, the CEO, and see if actually that was his viewpoint. But you can see, like, so I did this other experiment with the leadership team where I got them to go and meet some of their key stakeholders, and I got them to come back in the room. And normally when you give feedback to each other in the team, you would say, oh, Fred, our CEO, thinks we should be doing this. But instead of talking about the feedback that they've gathered, I asked them to embody the person the feedback came from. So say if I met Fred, the team would then be asking me, I'm Suzanne, but I'm standing in the shoes of Fred. Okay, on this particular topic, what is Fred saying? Because I've already spoken to Fred, you see? So you can also use embodiment in coaching, which might seem a bit advanced, but that's also an interesting way of getting teams to think differently. So what I'm saying is that scary. Is this sort of like on Mars? Does it resonate with you? What's coming up for people? Can you see the benefit of bringing in those voices into conversations?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which voices would be best to bring in. So if the voices of people who have conflict in are the best, or the ones you're trying to understand, or the ones that are really far away, or the ones that are really close. And so that's what I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah. So you can also think of, you know, once you've done your relationship systems map, that mapping exercise, but depending on, like, I keep thinking any team serves a purpose. Team has to have a purpose, and their purpose is for something, is to achieve something for stakeholders. So I try and bring those stakeholder voices into the team a lot. Yep. What else is coming up?
This is also like getting in the shoes of someone in order to think what they would think, and yeah, like how would they feel. So I think that this could also be used in one-on-one coaching, right? Not only in systemic.
Yeah. So remember, because when you're coaching that one person, they've got all their systems. So you could say, okay, if your boss was standing behind you, or they were standing in the room, what would they be saying to you right now? That's really powerful. Yeah, so give that a go. Any more questions on that? Or I'm just going to go to...
We have a comment about Edward de Bono's, the 6 thinking hats, I suppose. So if this is related with this somehow, because yeah, with these 6 thinking hats, we had a specific way of thinking based on the color. So is this somehow related?
It's not. So when you're putting the hat on, right, you're going into a stance to be a challenger, or I can't remember what the 6 hats are, but you're play acting a certain way. Whereas the empty chair exercise is you're getting them to go more in the shoes of whichever stakeholder you're trying to bring in. So you know how I gave you the example of Fred the CEO. When I'm going, if Fred the CEO is in the room, what would he be saying? They're going in the shoes of exercise more of going, okay, if I was Fred, I'd be saying this. So it's more that. So slightly different.
Okay.
And and you might say, okay, why is she talking about this? But it's to give the team more awareness of what they already know. Remember, we said systems are intelligent, complex systems. They already know a lot. But it's trying to also, if you think of the iceberg, it's trying to emerge what's unconscious to become conscious. And so I try and do a lot with teams around, okay, what would our stakeholders be saying? What would our stakeholders need from us right now? Or, you know, so that's all that sort of stuff. All right. Another tip, and hopefully you find this handy, whenever I work with a team or I work with, I know it's small print, but you don't have to read all the questions, but I do a agile coaching agreement. So I know this isn't systems work, but I do it for systems. So I'm just taking it from the team thing. And I created this with Rick and John, and Helen came later to do some work on it. And it's free. It's on Wikipedia, and it might be useful. I don't know if you ever do any contracting with teams, but for me, it's always around what are the outcomes we're trying to achieve as a team. Digging into the strategy, that might be the approach we're going to be taking, the frequency we're going to be meeting, all that sort of stuff, the environment, and then having some sort of Kanban of what we're actually doing. But I find, and then I do my review dates, but I've done this when I do my one-to-one coaching. So with the POs or Scrum Masters or leadership, I do it with teams. If there's 2 teams that I'm working with and there's going to be a lot of discussion, I might do something that I create a contract for them. So I just wanted to maybe just throw it out there. How many of you actually contract with teams or have something living or transparent that you can refer to? Or you might use something else. Yep. Do you want to talk about what you use, or maybe want to share?
On my
Sarah
side,
has used something, I think.
Oh, Tisha, you can go. Or Sarah.
yeah, on
Yep.
my side, it's something a bit like that. Even if something we build in the Agile Coach team, but we clarify what we expect as a team, what the team is expecting as outcomes, and the practices they want to work on. So it's somehow similar to that.
Yeah. Okay. Sarah, did you want to?
I guess, yes, I guess we do the same as you said for the one-to-one coaching. Is what's the overall goal? How we can make this overall goal as a small goals in order to discuss one at a time for something like this. How would you like me to show up? So because people sometimes would like the coach to be discussing with them in a stance or a specific stance whenever they are discussing something, how they would like to have the feedback, and how would you like to be committed to what we are going to agree on. So those things.
Yeah, you can put it in a Word document, you know, with a one-to-one coaching, whatever. I use this probably more with teams, or yeah, I do use it with product owners, Scrum Masters and stuff. I still go through the same template, but yeah, do that. Okay. So I just wanted to go to next. All right. If you want to dig into anything systemic coaching, these are my go-to books. And it's just, there's a huge, vast amount of information out there, but the model here is the Peter Hawkins model, which I did in the diploma, and it's a way of working with teams. So he's got a concept of, and some of this might be familiar, but you're clarifying what the team's purpose is. This is the sort of team dynamics, co-creating with the team, how you commission with your stakeholders, and how you keep connected, and core learning. And there's a lot of different tools and stuff that goes with that, but that's his main model, which would be in his books, the leadership team coaching and systemic coaching. And there's also quite a few that have case studies in it. So I would say that Peter Hawkins is a sort of a leader. He's in the UK. The other person is David Clutterbuck, who's also from the UK. He's got the Peril model. I don't know if you've heard of that, but That's also quite a great book. My favorite book is actually The Fertile Void. I loved the Gestalt work for coaching. John Leary Joyce, I've actually done some work with him. I thought it was fabulous. So really good read if you want to go into Gestalt area. Also, Barry Oshry, Seeing Systems, does some great work where his lens is like top, middle, and bottom. People that are at the top of an organization work and they have certain behaviors. People who are stuck in the middle have work in certain behaviors, and people that feel that they're in the bottom have certain behaviors. And you can tell when you meet people, even if you didn't know their role, where they operate and what the patterns are that you can watch for when people are in those different layers. That's really interesting. And Deep Democracy is a little bit like Standing in the Shoes of, where we've done some deep democracy. Actually, we did some on Brexit and some on other topics, or you can do agile topics where you go and you stand in the shoes of. So with this one, I work with teams where we work on the topic of whatever topic they want to discuss. And then we go, okay, who are the main stakeholders on this topic? So might be someone from HR, might be finance director, might be the CEO. And then what they do is they put those pieces of paper down on the floor. And if they want to stand from them, they go and stand on that piece of paper and they talk as if they're that person. And there's a conversation that just sort of emerges with different people taking different roles. So that can be very interesting. And sorry, that was the last one, the systems and survived leadership. So that was everything I was going to sort of talk about today, but just welcome any questions, because I know this might be completely new to you, but I was just trying to do a couple of tasters and easy things for you to hopefully take away and tomorrow. So give me some feedback. Who wants to ask questions or? You're all very quiet. I think it's just the end of the day. I'm a little bit sick, but yeah.
Thank you. Those are very hands-on methods, and I really appreciated that. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, thanks, Suzanne.
So we we have half an hour more. I don't know if you, Suzanne, can keep up with this or not, but if there are no other questions, what we can do is to work a bit on the maps that we created, because some people found it like it was quite few, the 5 minutes. So in case you're interested on that, maybe we could go back and work a bit more, and also maybe we could work the future state.
I'd like to say hello to Susan. You can hear my voice is going.
Oh yeah, I can hear
okay.
You. Hello.
Hi. Look, I'm going to sign off from the Zoom right now because I'm just feeling so unwell. But thank you for taking the time, and I hope I can kind of connect with you on LinkedIn when I'm feeling a bit better. And I just I've been doing this sort of stuff for many years because I lived and worked in Japan, and of course, you know, the relationship with Kaizen and continuous improvement and Japanese management practices 30 years ago, and how it's been the uptake in Agile. I suppose, and this is something that a comment from me, in all my years of looking at teams, particularly engineering teams in R&D places and also in hospitality, etc. You know, the bottom line for me is it's culture. It's the cultural, you know, pretty much everything comes from the need for blueprinting the culture and visioning a cultural change, because you can fix one little area and it pops up again somewhere else, you know, and anyway, that's just been my experience, and I don't know if it's been yours, but you know, my big thing is culture change now.
Yeah, just on that, because I know we didn't go through inner and outer roles, but I'm just going to take it to the inner role, because I'm just going to explain. Outer roles is what you have on your, say, your business card. So someone might be a Scrum Master, or Agile coach, whatever. But the inner roles, so it's really interesting in a team, which roles people take on. So there might be the nurturer. You can probably see in the team. There might be a nurtured person taking on a nurturer role. There might be the challenger. There's always a and you think, oh, that guy is a real nuisance. He always challenges everything, and then he'll leave the team. And someone else in the team will take on that challenger role. That's what I'm saying about systems are very intelligent and moving and whatever, that there's these inner roles that people take up, even in your family group. You've taken on your inner roles. So it's interesting. There's a whole thing on roles, outer, inner roles, but within teams, it's also interesting looking at the roles. But I agree. The culture is the big one with the blueprint, and it's constantly changing, right? So what's really interesting is there was I worked for a small consultancy, great family values, probably even say it was more like teal, and then they brought in a lot of people from another consultancy with a different culture, and they're thinking they were going to keep their own culture, and what they didn't realize is the culture then became the other bigger culture, because it was such a stronger culture in that, it was like the subsystem in the system, and the huge impact it had. With the
no merger planning, merger planning, and it happens all the time, and it creates so much stress.
Yeah.
No sort of sitting back and having a perspective on the merger. It's a marriage contract, and they're suddenly thrown into it, and there's new in-laws,
Yeah.
So it's sort of and that is, and so much is lost financially and in terms of time when that happens. They think it's a good thing, and it probably is a good thing to merger or take over, but it creates a lot of grief when it could be done so much more intelligently. You just have to look at Elon.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I have to say goodbye, and yes, Asoli.
Okay, lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Maya.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, do people want to do their mapping? What serves the group? See, we're a system. What serves the group? What are people?
How's the energy? Or maybe you can share something like an observation or an outcome that you took out of your system.
Oh, maybe I'll give you one more tip, because I know you're going to do your, if you're going to do your spend more time on doing relationship system later. I just want to maybe give you a little bit more of an advanced tool of in the shoes of, which is really helpful with the diagram. So, and I sometimes do this to myself. So if you remember my picture, and I'm the coach, and there was a conflict, and sometimes I might put myself in the shoes of the head of the transformation, and I might go, okay, what does that person require of me? And I might just think about that for a while. Or I might go, what does the CEO, what do they require of the team? Or, what's it in service of? Or sometimes, I just find that putting myself into the different shoes of, and then going, okay, what do they need from me, and what's that relationship? Sort of gives me a little bit of just a different perspective of the in the shoes. And sometimes, so you could do your mapping with your team, and then they might, maybe they've got a conflict with another team. So what I might do to that team is say, okay, say if you're in the shoes of that team, what do they need of you? And that's just another way of, expand, putting a little bit more energy or coaching into using your relationship systems map. Does that make sense? Is that okay? Yeah. Why do they think like that? Just get them to, be curious around when you do your own, what's showing up for you, because where are you in conflict with people, or where have you got a weaker relationship with certain people? So anyway, I did one with this one lady, and I did the current state and the future state, and she did the current state. And what was really evident when she did that bird's eye view of looking down at her diagram was that she had sort of a weak relationship to her boss, but her boss had very strong relationships to the other 3 guys. And she realized that actually her weak relationship with the boss, she didn't have that good of relationships with all of them. So it was almost like when she saw it, she goes, gee, I've really let this one go. And then her future state was like, okay, which relationship does she want to actually put a bit more energy into, and how is she going to go about that? So that was just a big eye-opener for her, whereas she kept thinking she had a conflict with her boss. And when she looked at it, she goes, oh, actually, there's a very strong relationship there that I didn't really, register. So anyway, so just be interesting to see when you do yours, what comes out for you. All right, so Uma,
yeah, there's a question. That's what I wanted to.
Coach, would you recommend having contracts with various subsystems within the org? I tend to have a contract wherever I'm working for certain parts, only because, one, it's good just for transparency, know what you're working on, but also you can have contracts that go across different systems if that serves the systems to get stronger. So if there's no, I know you're looking for a short and hard rule, but it depends on what those systems are and what you're trying to actually get out of them. So I'll tell you, I did a contract with my leadership team and I thought it was fine, but really it would have strengthened to do a contract with the leadership team, their manager, which was head of IT, and the head of transformation that was in Brussels. And if I'd done a 3-way contract, I think it just would have been a lot stronger, and we probably wouldn't have had as many conflicts or problems that we had, because people were operating from different lenses. So you might want to think about, okay, how would it serve? What am I trying to fix here in that contracting? And then remember, contracting is a living document. You should be reviewing it, every couple of months. So you might want to just try it out, and if it's not working, do smaller contracts or make it bigger.
Hi, Suzanne. I thought I'd get off mute to just ask a following question. So thanks for that explanation. That makes sense. I'm just thinking here, possibly a bad question, maybe not. So say you're going in a new organization and you're going through that discovery phase, and that discovery phase lasts for, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months, howsoever. How soon would you yourself go into that? This is what I want to do. This is my playbook I want to bring in. Can we get a contract in? Because this is a working document that, like you said, it's to expose transparency. So how soon would you bring this in?
So if I'm doing the discovery phase, I could contract for the discovery phase. So I could use that same canvas and go, this is the contract for the next, 3-4 weeks. We'll be doing discovery phase. What would good outcomes be? Because I try and co-create the outcome. So even though I might have my playbook, I want to co-create what is the good outcome for us all. What's the environment? What's the strategy I'm going to approach? So it's a great way just to set expectations up front with it all, and also to show progress with the canvas. Because sometimes they go, okay, what have you achieved? So I've actually used it as just a good talking point. And then after the discovery phase, you could do a quick retro on it. How was the canvas? What needs to shift and move? Okay, now we're going to do this next phase. Let's recontract and what needs to happen now. So I use it sort of as a constant, ever-changing. Does that help?
Oh, I see. So what you're suggesting is recontract, more like a team relaunch sort of thing.
Yeah. So there's an acronym, ABC, always be contracting.
Nice one. Cool. Thanks.
Because actually a lot of the times I'm coaching other coaches, or individuals, it's because the contract was not tight enough, or people were unsure what you were meant to be doing or what people were doing, or, you know, so I always go back to, well, what was the contracting part?
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Really good talk. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're closer to 9:30 local time, so I guess there's no more energy or time to do something regarding the exercise. So I hope that it's going to be a nice takeaway for you, for everyone to work it on himself or herself, because it's like very thought-provoking, and you really can see and you can map the relationships within your system and specifically your teams if you're dealing with it every day, and then you can see where you have to put your attention actually on and work it. Okay, so if there are no other questions,
I can share the Miro link. Is that Harris? Should I send it to you and you send it to people?
Yeah. Or you can also send it here if you like, and then if this is accessible, we can also post it to the event.
So let me just share this.
Or you can export it, whatever you like.
Let me just put it in the chat and people can see it. Does someone just try it and tell me if it works?
I'm trying it right now. Yeah, it works.
Okay, cool. But look, I'm happy because you know me now. So I'm on LinkedIn, so you can track me down and you can go, I didn't understand this bit, or how do you do this, or whatever. So just reach out or connect with me. That's fine. And have a go. Yeah. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you too for being with us. It was a pleasure. And thank you everyone that attended. See you next time, which is going to be a practice Wednesday in 2 weeks' time. Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night. Thank you, Suzanne. Bye.
Thank you.